With us now from New York is Republican Congressman Mike Lawler. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. You voted for the House cuts package, sending it over to the Senate. If Congress doesn't act before this Friday's deadline, that money will have to be spent. It looks like the Senate will be waiting again until the very last minute to try to jam you guys in the House again, like they did on reconciliation. What happens Friday? What do you think happens next?
Well, we'll see what the Senate does. I would say I would disagree with the premise that the Senate jammed us on reconciliation. The fact is, the core of the product was what the House put together over many months. The Senate, of course, did make changes, but the ultimate product was, at its core, what the House had passed back in May. So when you look at this rescissions package, it cannot be changed. This is what the president has submitted. The House passed it. The Senate will have to act. If they do not act, then obviously the spending would proceed forward. Ultimately, to your larger point, though, we have a looming government funding deadline, September 30th. And that will require 60 votes in the Senate. It will require Democratic support, as we saw with the CR back in March of this year when Chuck Schumer, moved ahead with support for the CR and took a lot of incoming for it. We'll see how Democrats choose to act when it comes towards the actual appropriations process here. They obviously are demanding no spending cuts whatsoever. And of course, Republicans are going to want to rein in the size of government. When you look at the Biden years, they added $5 trillion in new spending in 2 years. We are facing $36 trillion in debt. We're running $2 trillion deficits. We're paying $1 trillion in interest on that debt. And over the next decade, we're projected to spend $86 trillion. So obviously something's got to give here if we're going to actually get serious about tackling our spending and our debt.
Tom Homan, the White House border czar, is coming hard for New York City, which is right next to your district. It's part of an effort that the president said is targeting the core of the Democratic power center. You've taken a slightly different approach here. Here you are helping get a high school student from Haiti released from ICE and pushing the administration to extend the protected status for some 500,000 Haitian immigrants. Do you have any concerns about this stepped up ICE enforcement in your neighborhood?
Look, there is a lot of challenges that we are facing as a nation. Obviously, under Joe Biden, you saw 10.5 million migrants come into the country, most of them illegally. They were granted parole and TPS and other, legal pathways under the Biden administration. TPS is a temporary protected status. For several countries, it has been in effect for over a decade. And so that obviously is something the administration is trying to fix and stop the abuse of our immigration system, and I understand that. But there's also a reality on the ground in Haiti that we have to contend with. The State Department has issued warnings for Americans not to travel to Haiti and for Americans living in Haiti to get out, because the situation on the ground is dire. Ever since the president's assassination almost 4 years ago, the country has been devoid of any real election. It has had gangs in control of major ports and cities, including Port-au-Prince. You've had kidnapping, human trafficking, gun trafficking, including guns coming from the United States into Haiti. And so until the situation on the ground in Haiti is actually rectified, and I do believe the United States and our allies need to do more. A Kenyan peacekeeping force is not doing the job, especially if they're not authorized to engage the gangs and rid the country of them. So the fact is, you need to have stability on the ground. You need to have security on the ground. 40% of the Haitian population lives in the United States. It's one of the largest diaspora in the country. And I represent an area in Spring Valley, New York, which has the second largest Haitian diaspora per capita. So, yes, I am advocating for the administration to extend TPS, and in the instance that they won't, to recognize that these individuals on TPS do deserve asylum. there should be a swift processing of those claims because the situation on the ground requires it.
Okay, back to budgetary matters. You voted, as we were talking about, for the president's budget package. You said it wasn't perfect, but you got your constituents really substantial, and you sort of led the charge on this. You got your constituents a substantial increase in their federal deductions for state and local taxes. But Democrats in Albany are hammering you for this. Governor Kathy Hochul's budget chief says New York State run health insurance program is going to take a $750 million hit this year due to the cuts in the bill. They say it's going to be a catastrophe. What do you say to them?
Well, first, on the issue of SALT, it was the single largest tax cut in the whole bill. We were able to quadruple the SALT cap from $10,000 to $40,000 for everyone making under $500,000 with a 1% increase. We were able to protect pass-through entities as well, our small businesses, and their ability to deduct their state and local taxes. This was a big win for New York, but for hardworking Americans across the country who are in high-tax states or areas with high property taxes. Florida, for instance, has seen a 37% increase in property taxes in the last 4 years. So this is a big win for everybody. With respect to Medicaid, look, New York spends 83% more on Medicaid than the average of the other 49 states. It's the most expansive Medicaid program in the country. We made common sense reforms to sustain these programs for those who need them. Eligibility verification, making sure that those who are ineligible do not remain on the program, taking away benefits from the IDD community, from our seniors, from children, from single mothers. Citizenship verification, and make sure that illegal immigrants are not collecting Medicaid benefits. And work requirements to make sure that able-bodied adults without dependent children are working upwards of 80 hours a month. That's about 20 hours a week. Additional changes that were made, the Essential Plan. New York and Minnesota were the only two states in the entire country that took advantage of a tax credit under the Affordable Care Act. That tax credit is being eliminated. New York, prior to 2015, paid 100% of the freight for those lawful immigrants to have access to health benefits. They will have to do that again. In addition, the provider tax, which is nothing more than a scam, it was a way to get more federal dollars without matching state dollars. We are changing the rate from 6% to 3.5%. New York won't be affected until 2031. And finally, state-directed payments. The Biden administration changed the rules to allow Medicaid state-directed payments to be paid out at the private insurance rate as opposed to a 1-to-1 ratio with Medicare, which is what it always was. So starting in 2028, we're going to phase that back down to the 1-to-1 ratio, 10% per year.
Congressman,
so, look, yes, New York is going to have to make some changes, but it's necessary changes to keep the program viable for those who need it.
Your deep knowledge of the way that New York government works leads me to my next question, which is everybody wants to know, you've said there's not going to be a primary, that people are playing up this potential clash between you and your fellow New York delegation member, Elise Stefanik, that you guys are going to clash. You said there's not going to be a primary in a run for governor to take on Kathy Hochul. President Trump has endorsed you for another term in the House. That seems like he's steering you away from a gubernatorial run. How does that affect your decision-making?
Look, I understand how important my seat is, obviously, to keeping control of the House. I'm one of only 3 Republicans representing a district that Harris won, and we have to hold the House. But I also understand how important it is to have a real leader in New York. Kathy Hochul is the most feckless, incompetent governor in the nation. She has run the state into the ground. We lead the nation in out-migration. We have the highest tax burden, the worst business climate, and now you're on the precipice of having an avowed socialist who's engaged in communist talk, talking about seizing the means of production, wanting to ban capitalism and billionaires. It's an embarrassment to our state, and frankly, it's a disaster for the country. And so I'm going to be meeting with the president at some point soon and have a conversation about the path forward. But one way or the other, we need to have a united front, whether it's me, whether it's Elise Stefanik. We need to be focused on defeating Kathy Hochul Any effort, time, or money wasted in a primary is money, time, and effort not spent defeating Kathy Hochul next year.
Okay, now you know what I have to ask you before I let you go. Over the weekend, President Trump said that the allegations in the Jeffrey Epstein files were at least partly fabrications from Democrats, which is why they should not be released. But there are a lot of people in his movement, like Steve Bannon, who say no dice. They want a special counsel. They want everything to come out. What should happen in this Jeffrey Epstein morass?
Listen, I'm probably not the person to ask because I don't speak in conspiracy theory, but at the end of the day, there's a lot bigger issues facing this country than Jeffrey Epstein. The guy is dead and buried. Let's move on.
Okay, and so we will. If you were from Peekskill, you would know him already. But if you don't, there he is, Congressman Mike Lawler. We thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Appreciate it.
You bet.